Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. We're going to be reading a new article, new news piece that just came out. Some more words from Kathleen Kennedy. Now, my take on this, of course, once we get to the actual quote, we'll be able to really decipher everything and not, brand it with more of a clickbaity title. Or maybe this is exactly what she is meaning. Let's find out. In today's article, and this one's from MovieWeb, and there are many other articles covering this same topic, the world of Star Wars is ready for a new beginning. 46 years after the premiere of Episode 4, A New Hope, the first great adventure of what would become the biggest science fiction franchise in cinema history, the stories of the Star Wars universe continue to appear, but it is time to turn the page and find a new path. After 3 trilogies that connected a larger story, Lucasfilm closed the Skywalker saga, the plot that started it all. However, the franchise has expanded well beyond the legacy of Luke, Leia, Han Solo, and even Darth Vader or the Jedi. And despite the fact that most of the spin-offs still have some connection to the main story, they are slowly drifting further and further away. And I fully agree with that. I don't even really think that the spin-offs have much of a connection to the original stories at all, except for maybe copyright items like names and, lightsabers. Therefore, with the future Star Wars projects, both on film and on television, the franchise will seek to start a new path away from what George Lucas created. This was anticipated by Lucasfilm CEO Kathleen Kennedy in an interview with Games Radar, referring particularly to the film that will see the return of Daisy Ridley as the main star, directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. And here's a quote by Kathleen Kennedy, for those of you listening on the Star Wars Theory podcast. And I think it offers just tremendous opportunity to introduce new characters and start with something fresh, because we culminated with what George Lucas was creating. And now we take all of that and move it to the next chapter. So look, there are 2 different outlooks that I could have for this, that we could have for this. The first being, yeah, you know what? She's going to take this and she's going to move it to the next chapter. She is completing George Lucas's stories, and now they are going to be creating their own sorts of characters and continuing the legacy of the Jedi, the Sith, dark side users, light side users, the Force in general, and whatever else may come in between or outside of that. And they're going to be making their own stories, not akin to what George Lucas had created with the Skywalker saga and his other characters. And then, of course, there's the other outlook, which is more my outlook, and I know a lot of you guys as well. But really, at the end of the day, it's however you want to take this, and your overall reception to Star Wars since Disney has purchased Lucasfilm and since Kathleen Kennedy has ran Lucasfilm, is that they have already destroyed what George Lucas created, and they now are done with that. They've burned it to the ground, they've destroyed all the characters, and they want to now create their own stories, move on with the IP that George created, which Disney bought, so their IP now, but originally created by George, and they want to use the fundamental mechanics of Star Wars to create their own junk going forwards. That is another way, that is another outlook that you could take this. And personally, that's how I take it too. And I say this not because I want to be toxic or to take the fun out of everything, but because I am very protective of George Lucas Star Wars, of myself as a kid, who was obsessed with Star Wars and, the real Star Wars, Episode 4, 5, and 6. And then, of course, seeing 1, 2, 3. And then getting into the Clone Wars and all that. Not to mention the extended universe. I'm extremely protective of that part of my life and what it means to myself, what it means to my friends, and to all of you out there as well. So for me, the way I look at this is that she has really made quite possibly the most horrible decisions when it comes to Star Wars. And now that she's done taking a massive doo-doo on it and just, stinking up the whole place, she wants to smile and walk away and create something new. From the beginning, we've always heard Kathy talk about how she respects George Lucas and how she wants to continue the legacy of his characters and give them the respect they deserve. And we saw that she did everything but those things that she claimed. In my opinion, I don't think she's the most honest or truthful. And even if that's not her intention, I don't think she really is the right person to be running Star Wars or Lucasfilm, or to be continuing these characters with that level of respect that George had. Now, I also believe, and this is of course my opinion, that I don't think that the chapter is closed for George. I don't think his characters are done. And I think that there's a lot more that could be said with a lot of his characters, and a lot more stories that we could divulge into. Whether it be offshoot stuff like what they do with Visions, we can have a Starkiller story starring Sam Witwer and have that just be Legends. You know, it doesn't matter. We could still enjoy it and have fun with it. Or they want to go off and create more stories about Obi-Wan. Or heck, I mean, look what they did with Luke Skywalker. And this comes from the words of Sam Witwer, of course. And not to say that he supports anything I say at all, probably quite the contrary. I would have to agree with what he said about when you take Luke Skywalker, any character, and you fundamentally change them off screen, that is inviting a lot of people to have a major problem with it. And I think after having done that with the sequel trilogy and Kathleen giving the okay to Rian Johnson and JJ to do all of these things and these major changes to George's story, it never really even continued his story. So I don't think we've really even been able to finish his chapter, let alone start this new one, which is going to be some completely convoluted, just anything but George Lucas Star Wars in my opinion. And frankly, I'm pretty nervous about it. Now, I know as time goes on, we're going to be getting some good stuff. I do firmly believe that we'll be getting a lot of great content. Well, maybe not a lot, but a decent amount of great content. And I'm mainly just looking at Dave Filoni's stuff and the stuff he creates. I'm hoping The Mandalorian Season 4 is going to be good, but primarily I'm thinking about the animated stuff, which Dave Filoni has always really hit home runs with, right? Tales of the Jedi, Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Rebels, all this and that. Those are really great projects, and I'm hoping that we'll get Tales of the Sith or Tales of the Bounty Hunters or more Tales of the Jedi going forwards, which we're getting a season 2 of that, of course. But as for, you know, this Rey movie coming out and all of the other projects coming out, you know, the origins of the Jedi and this and that, I mean, these are really special stories that have been created in the expanded universe that have been set in stone for many decades. And for them to come in and want to alter that and change that and then say that, hey, you know, we've completed George's chapter, we're now going to be starting the next chapter. I have a really massive problem with that. I don't think that they ever really cared about George's stuff, and I don't think they really ever gave it the respect that it deserved, nor did they ever really conclude the characters in a respectful or meaningful way. They kind of just threw the torch off to their new characters by really sidelining the main ones and making them look like chumps. Kind of giving them all, especially the male characters, this sort of cookie cutter outline or cookie cutter storyline of, hey, this great heroic character who is now broken and destroyed and has to find his way back to heroism, which he had already done several times in George's story. But hey, we're just going to do it again because, you know what, we can't think of anything new to expand his story arc. And we have to have some new characters come in there and kind of shine the light on them. So to me, I think, you know, they've done a really bad job of carrying George's torch. And for them to want to go and start the next chapter and move it to the next chapter, I think is bogus, man. I just don't agree with it. And I'm going to be very outspoken about all of their projects going forwards if they continue to tarnish the legacy of Star Wars and the story that George Lucas had created. So I'm hoping that it's going to be great. I mean, personally, I'm a Star Wars fan and I want it to be great. I want it to continue along the lines that George had created. But you and I both know that it has not felt as authentic as it could have. And I think that's why there is such a big divide in the fandom. Either way, I'd like to know what you guys think about this and her words going forwards. Do you think, hey, maybe some of us are overreacting? Maybe Kathleen Kennedy is just wanting to continue what George created and you think she's doing a fantastic job? Or maybe you have more so sentiments as I do, and you believe that they're not really doing a great job, and they're just kind of milking the cash cow and really disrespecting the characters that came before to make way for the new. As always, remember that each and every one of us are Star Wars fans, so please be respectful to each other in the comments and on Twitter and all that stuff. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching today's video, and I'll see you all in the next one, as well as on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you always.